Okay, so let's say I'm listening to this playback and I want to just look at this, something I heard in this electric piano thing. Well, one thing you can do real quick is just make it large. Any size, there's no small, medium, or jumbo, for example. I can move this over here, and right now I have it, it's not actually changing the amplitude, it's just changing how it looks on the screen so I can see a little bit more of the waveform. But let's say I hear something right here and I want to just bring this straight down. I want to see that. You have these little things where you can make it larger. Let me get rid of my transport for a second. You can make it larger and smaller this way, but wouldn't it be great if you could just grab right on the timeline and pull straight down and get right to the sample level and go like this and just move things around like this? Or maybe I just want the bass on top for some reason. I can just move things around. And let's say, I have a lot of tools up here. You can see them. I have an arrow tool and I can go up here to get to my tools. But wouldn't it be great if I just right-clicked on the project window and everything's right there? How about if I want to take this and maybe do some audio editing for whatever I want to process it, with a phase shift, or I want to use one of my built-in software plugins and run it through, a spatial thing to make it the stereo wider. I actually want to commit that to the wave file. And I can do it up there by doing audio, or I can just right-click on the project window and go to audio, process, plugins. They're all right there. So you never have to really leave. I spend 90% of my time in one window. How many people can really say that about every software they've used if they ever use software? Most people can't, because one thing I learned when I was working at Microsoft is that when they release new versions of software, there's two things that happen. They add features. So adding features is a big thing, but usability is the other thing. There's vast teams of people that are generally contractors or just consumers that they call and they say, how would you like to do usability testing? We'll give you a free copy of any software on the wall over there. So people walk out with a copy of Office for spending 3 hours with Microsoft programmers saying, just use the software and see what you think. And they say, well, I don't like this, I like this. You can put this button here, and that's what usability testing is. And I think some companies do it better than others. Some companies just release a new feature and don't really think about usability and make the software much more difficult to use because this new feature is so weirdly integrated into the software that it's just like useless. I don't like this. There's been issues I've had with Adobe software. Anybody that's ever used software has had issues like this, where you get the new version and it's either buggy, doesn't work, or they've added these features, but it's like, why do I need these features? I like the old version so much better. I sure liked Windows XP a lot better. Can I get Windows XP reinstalled on my, you've heard that over the last year. So Steinberg, I think, did a great job with Cubase 4 when they went from SX3, is that when they moved it to 4, they added a whole bunch of new features, but they made the usability even better. So if I want to go over here and do lots of edits, I can just go over here and say, well, let's say I want to split this up. So I use the split tool and I can cut things up this way. Let's move it a little closer here so we have little pieces of audio. Thing that's cool about Cubase, when you select something like this, you can now go in here and just grab see these little candles here. If I just want that section to be louder, well, I could do automated mixing, which I'll show in a second here, or I can just grab this guy and go turn it up. And it just turns it up by as much as, I think, 60 dB, something like that. But there's actually a style of editing that they do a lot in Nashville, Tennessee. You see the thing show up when it does that? It shows what the difference is over 0 and decibels that I'm adding to it by moving this. There's a style of editing that they do in Nashville, especially for vocal tracks, because sometimes singers are like really close to the mic and pulling straight back, and a lot of them don't want to record with compressors to control the level. That happens when I do this, and if I'm singing, which I'm not going to do, if I'm really belting, then I do it very soft. And you're trying to deal with the levels on there, and you don't want to record with a compressor. Wouldn't it be great if you could do another style? You can also sit there and ride the fader and do automated mixing, or you can do the style of cut and run editing where you go like this and just cut things up like this. And right now, see how it's snapping? I can turn off snap so I can do a really precise edits in here. And then, so let's say this was a vocal track. I can go in here and say, that was too soft, or that was too loud. This is too soft. This was too loud. So you can kind of edit this way. It's another style of editing that Cubase is really good at. So as an audio workstation software, it's killer. I love this software. And I was a complete Logic person. I will say that right out. And a Pro Tools person for a long time. Absolutely. But I personally, if I left the company tomorrow, I would use Cubase software. Absolutely. I'm just straight up with you on that. So, what else? So, you know, there's cool things about Cubase. Let's say for whatever reason, I'll just show you little Cubase-y things before I start mixing this. Let's say for whatever reason, I decided to, you know what would be really cool if I took the process here and I decided, you know what would be interesting? Let's go ahead and just reverse that sample. And you know what would be kind of interesting? How about if I ran it through an amp simulator? Look at that. There's our cool little amp simulator. You can always preview it before you do it. I turn it way down. So it's a reverse sample that I'm now going to, if I could actually get down here, there's the process. Then I'm actually going to, I actually destructively edited that, okay? I saved the project, turn it off, turn it back on, and most every other software, when you go and you play it for your friend, and I'll just take this part, what I did here. I broke it. Now I've really totally messed it up. Sorry. So most software you would be hosed now. You've messed it up, except Cubase. Cubase always remembers the original file, so I go down here to offline process history, and I can say either just deactivate it, or I can just later just remove it completely, and I'm back to what I started with. So you can do as much editing as you want in Cubase and really never break it in a lot of ways. So that's cool, yeah?
And you can apply it just to that specific snippet of data.
Yep.
So you don't have to load it onto the track.
That's right.
And then manipulate it with envelopes to
That's right.
create this.
You can just do it right there by just cutting that little piece up. So and then of course I'm now saying, can we just go back to what I started with, because it's unlimited undo redo. We have that obviously, and never stops there. Now, since I'm over here with Mr. Motif here, let me do this.
How many plugins come standard with Cubase?
I really don't know the answer to that offhand, but I can find it out. It's just a specification. There's, you know how many products I have to remember, and I always forget, like, how many effects are in the Motif XS? If you asked me that, I would be like, well, 75, so I'm not exactly sure, and I could count them, but then it would be sad. But there's a lot. I mean, I'll show you if I go over here just to, well, here, I'll do it from, it's always fun to do it over here anyway, or I'll do it from here. I have my little controller, since we haven't talked about this yet. The CC121, a dedicated controller for Cubase. I'm going to open up a channel now, like this. See? Now I am going to have to use my mouse for some of this stuff, but there's all the effects that are standard. The one thing I don't do, some of my friends that are product specialists call up the Waves guy and say, can you get me the platinum one? No, I don't want to do that, because I want you guys to see just what you get, rather than, oh, and that's a Waves. But Waves, all the stuff out there, we use VST. There's audio units. There's, I guess, DirectX is still something. They were going to kill it. I talked to the guys in my, we're going to get rid of DirectX, and I think we're going to use VST. And then so many people got mad that they said, oh, we're not going to kill it. So they decided to not kill it. But VST is cool because it's cross-platform. It's both Mac and Windows. It's not as opposed to audio units, which is only the Macintosh. So, and there's tons of them out there. And every company basically writes for VST as well, except for very specific Pro Tools kinds of companies. But there's a restoration, reverb, spatial, surround. These are just the ones that come with Cubase. Lots of them. I'll show you something that's cool about this little unit here. This is really cool. I'm going to open up a VST3 plugin. You see the little 3 next to that? About 85% of everything in Cubase is VST3 compatible. What VST3 means is it's our newest version of it, of the VST protocol. And what it does is if I'm using a plugin on an audio track, let's say I use 5 plugins, and it's only on a vocal track, that the background vocals go la, and that's it. But I have 3 effects on that track all the time. Every software, when you have 3 effects, is using up CPU load, even though there's no audio passing through that channel, which is a drag, except VST3. When VST3 doesn't see any audio, it releases its CPU load. That's very cool. We like. Smart. So that's what VST3 is.